happen, because while relations may have been thawing between Harry and his father, a very different picture between Prince William and his younger brother. The Waleses are very, very hurt by the allegations, the accusations, the comments that were made by Harry and Meghan in Netflix, in Harry's book Spare, for example. There is a sense of betrayal. There's also a lack of trust on any kind of conversations that are had, not being briefed out to the media. And so I think it is going to take a very long time for those wounds to heal.
Well, there were reports from the US saying that he had invited other members of the family to this event at St. Paul's tomorrow, and that the report seemed to suggest that no one had accepted that invitation. So, I mean, certainly William won't be rushing to see his brother. The relations between them are so poor now that they're not going to be reunited anytime soon, certainly not on this trip. It's been known by Prince Harry that for some time that he's been coming over for the Invictus Games, the 10th anniversary service that's being held in St. Paul's on Wednesday. He arrived today, but his representative let it be known that while Harry did want to see the King unfortunately didn't have time in his diary to see his younger son. So this is the first confirmation we've had that Harry ultimately has been snubbed. In February, he gave an interview, a huge high-profile interview with an American network, saying that he hinted that there would be a reunifying effect, because he was talking about when people had illness within the family and how that happened. He talked about trips that were coming up. He said every time he comes to the UK, he definitely wanted to see his family. He loved his family. And yet here he is, and something hasn't connected. Either he hasn't managed to figure it out in time, given enough advance warning, or the King's, now he's started his public facing duties again, and just simply doesn't have the time in perhaps a short window that Harry's here in which to see him. We talk about people reading too much into it, because obviously with the royal family and with the monarch, they do have such a regimented diary that it's not quite, popping in to see anybody else popping in to see their father. Having said that, he is the King. If you wanted to see him for even 10 minutes, 20 minutes, you'd think that he might be able to make the time. So it is significant, I think, in a way, that even though Harry is here for, one must assume, at least over 24 hours, given that his service at St. Paul's is late tomorrow, that there should be chance for Charles to see him. Having said that, Charles is still undergoing treatment. He's back on public facing duties, but he's not completely back to full bill of health just yet. So there will be, there's that going on as well. He's got his constitutional duties. He met the Prime Minister of Fiji today at Buckingham Palace. He'll be hosting a garden party tomorrow at the palace. So there is a lot going on for, a 75-year-old man who's still undergoing cancer treatment, on top of all the other things that he's got to deal with. So perhaps we should cut Charles some slack on that front. I mean, he'll be looking at assessing all the things going forwards as well that perhaps he hasn't been able to address just yet. His first visit to a Commonwealth realm, which still is yet to take place. There's talk of a trip to Australia in the autumn. So there is a lot in the intro for the King. But one might hope that if there is to be a kind of a reunion with Harry, then now would be a good time to do it. So I think it is, it is a moment in which we are seeing the royal family shift and change, and Charles is definitely showing where his priorities lie, perhaps. Well, there were reports from the US saying that he had invited other members of the family to this event at St. Paul's tomorrow, and that the report seemed to suggest that no one had accepted that invitation. So, I mean, certainly William won't be rushing to see his brother. The relations between them are so poor now that they're not going to be reunited anytime soon, certainly not on this trip. We know that Harry's been friendly with his cousins, Princess Eugenie in particular. So whether she might spend time to see Harry, we'll wait and see. But I think it's certainly his event, isn't it, Invictus? And you can't take away from the fact that this is his really successful project that's been going for 10 years now, and should be celebrated. And perhaps other members of the royal family. It's not necessarily that they're there. And he's going to then join up with Meghan. He's here on his own without the children or his wife. And then he's going to join up with Meghan, and they've got a trip planned for Nigeria. So it'll be interesting to see what they do there and how they promote their work there.
Africa's in my heart. Africa's in my soul. I first went there when I was 12, 13 years old. And after so many years, I wanted to give back to it because it had given me so much. The vast open space, the cultures, the communities, the people, the wildlife, just the freedom was a huge piece of why I loved Africa so much. And we call it Sentebale. In Sesotho, the local language, it means forget me not. And it's really focused on ensuring that the younger generation are quite literally not forgotten. Both Prince Seso's mother and my mother had a strong focus on HIV and AIDS, but also of the younger generation, because it's their futures that are being stolen from them. And at the heart of Sentebale, what we've always believed is that every single young person should have a chance at a better future.
Yeah, well, I was with Prince Harry in Colorado in 2013 when he visited the Warrior Games, which was a US project to create a kind of Paralympic-style competition for people, wounded servicemen and women, particularly people who come back from Afghanistan and needed a focus in their lives. And he said, this is brilliant. You know, he was so enthralled by the whole thing, thought it was fantastic. And he said, I'm going to take this home and do this at home. And he did. But he's made it really, truly international. So fair play to him. He's had 10 years where it's kind of every other year there's a big competition. The British government has actually ring-fenced £26 million in the recent budget to promote a bid, which, if successful, will see the Games held in Birmingham in 2027. The outcome of that will be discovered in July, so it will either be Washington or Birmingham. So it is a kind of a huge event that he's undertaken, and I think is unanimously praised by people close to the royal family and others.
Now, Prince Harry is in the UK, but says he isn't seeing the King. The Duke of Sussex is in London for an event marking the 10th anniversary of the Invictus Games. Harry's spokesman said he wouldn't be seeing the King due to his father's full schedule and that he hopes to see him soon. Let's get analysis on this from royal correspondent Sarah Hewson. Morning, Sarah.
Morning to you, James.
What are we to make of this? I mean, is this a case of the King not wanting to see Harry? Is it a case of Harry not wanting to see the King, or neither of them wanting to see each other?
Well, look, if we take the statement from the Duke of Sussex's spokesperson at face value, Prince Harry was very much hoping to see his father. He'd also made that clear when he gave an interview in Vancouver in February of this year. He said he was going to be popping back to the UK or through the UK on a number of occasions, and he really hoped to see his family. But the Duke of Sussex's spokesperson, at least, says it's not possible because of the King's diary of full commitments and various other priorities. Prince Harry, you read from that, isn't a priority for the King. Yes, he does have a busy day today. He has a series of meetings this morning. He is hoping to attend at the first of the year's Buckingham Palace garden parties this afternoon. He also has his weekly audience with the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak. Tomorrow, he's due to be heading out of London for an as yet undisclosed engagement. So yes, he's got a lot on, and he has just returned to work and wants to throw himself into it as much as he is physically able to do so. But in any normal family, James, if your son had travelled 5,000 miles and was just 3 miles or a maximum away from you, and you hadn't seen each other for some months, you think you might be able to make the time and find the time, even if it's just for a brief cup of tea. But this isn't a normal family. The lines of communication are very different. And I think we can only read into it that rift continues to run deep.
And without being too cynical, Sarah, you say if we take the Duke of Sussex's statement at face value, then it's come from the king, this desire not to meet. But should we take this statement at face value?
Well, that's the difficulty, isn't it? Because we haven't heard anything from Buckingham Palace. They're always very careful not to talk about the Duke of Sussex and whether or not any conversations and meetings have taken place. So we know what Prince Harry's side. We don't know what is going on behind the scenes for the king. And we know that with a diary for the monarch, these engagements are put in place many, many months in advance, and obviously caveated by the fact that, they are only happening if he's well enough to do so. We don't know how much notice the king was given of Prince Harry's visit and his intention to see his father. Of course, he did get on a plane in February after the king's diagnosis. He dashed here. The king held his helicopter at on the Buckingham Palace lawn. It was due to be leaving for Sandringham, but stayed and had that brief 45-minute maximum meeting with his son. But we all took that as a sign of things improving. There was also a telephone call in November on the king's birthday, and Archie and Lilibet sang happy birthday to their grandfather. We saw that as a sign that, at least between the king and his son, relations were starting to thaw. And it would have been widely expected that they would meet during the Duke of Sussex's visit here right now. And it seems that is not the case.
And also notable as well, Harry isn't meeting his brother. He's not meeting Prince William.
No, and I think that was pretty safe to assume that wasn't going to happen, because while relations may have been thawing between Harry and his father, a very different picture between Prince William and his younger brother. The Waleses are very, very hurt by the allegations, the accusations, the comments that were made by Harry and Meghan in Netflix, in Harry's book Spare, for example. There is a sense of betrayal. There's also a lack of trust on any kind of conversations that are had, not being briefed out to the media. And so I think it is going to take a very long time for those wounds to heal.
And that's the crucial question, isn't it, Sarah? I mean, look, families are complicated. We've all got our, quirks and differences sometimes. But, you would have thought maybe something like the king's cancer diagnosis might have been the opportunity for a healing in this relationship. At the moment, doesn't seem to be that way. Can you see a day when Prince Harry repairs his relationship with his father and his brother?
I'd really like to hope so. I think we all would, wouldn't we, James? Because nobody wants to see a family divided like this. There have been 3 key events, really, that could have been the catalyst for that coming together. The death of the late Queen, the diagnosis of his father with cancer, but also his sister-in-law, the Princess of Wales. I think these things are going to take time. Conversations, certainly, as I mentioned, have been taking place between the king and his youngest son, my darling boy, as he always called him. But these things are taking a lot longer than perhaps Harry, at least. I think we've seen a shift in his attitude and his approach, that he certainly does want to have that healing now. But interestingly, the timing yesterday coming of an announcement that Prince William is going to take over as Colonel-in-Chief of the Army Air Corps. That was Prince Harry's former regiment, the regiment with which he served in Afghanistan. It has been announced that the king is handing that over to his eldest son. And I think for Prince Harry, who was desperately disappointed to lose his honorary military titles when he left the royal family, that one is going to sting, particularly coming as it did just as it had been announced that there wasn't time for the king to meet up with him.
And just briefly, Sarah, an update on the king's health. I mean, obviously, we don't know the details of how his cancer treatment is going, but he did return partially to royal duties last week with a visit to a hospital to see fellow cancer patients. Do we know yet how many of the traditional summer events he's likely to attend?
We don't. And that's why I said he's expected and hoping to attend the garden party at Buckingham Palace today, because none of these things are set in stone. So we're told by Buckingham Palace that decisions will be made, at the time and with the advice of his doctors. Look, we saw the King coming back with a bang last week, visiting that cancer treatment centre. You could see just how much he got out of being back with the public, but also with fellow cancer patients. He wasn't there just as a monarch, he was there as one of them as well. There is a full programme of events this summer for the royal family. It's a particularly busy time of year for them. We're told it won't be the same for the King, but he's going to do as much as he can. So the garden party today, for example, Trooping the Colour, his birthday parade, one of the big ones, the 80th anniversary of D-Day, for example. And we do have that incoming state visit from the Emperor and Empress of Japan at the end of the month that is firmly put into the diary at this stage. So I think we'll have to see, but certainly building up those engagements, and we'll be seeing a lot more of the King over the coming weeks.
Prince Harry is in the UK, but he won't be seeing his father, the King. This seems a little surprising, as the last time they met, the Prince had flown over, especially to see his father after he was diagnosed with cancer. Let's speak now to Kate Mancy, Assistant Editor and Royal Editor at The Times. Morning, Kate.
Morning.
Now, Harry's here for the Invictus Games, is that right?
That's right. He's got his 10th anniversary service today at St Paul's Cathedral. These are the Paralympic-style games that he set up a decade ago to promote health and well-being among wounded veterans. He's here for that. He had a few events yesterday. He had hoped to see his father, the King, during his visit, but it seems that the King doesn't have time in his busy schedule now he's back at public engagements to meet up with his younger son. And yesterday there was an interesting development where a spokesman for Harry said as much, said it was, unfortunate, and it was all the kind of words that he didn't say in between.
Yeah.
About that his father's got a full diary of engagements, but he has various other priorities, and clearly the inference from that statement was Harry isn't one of them.
So the inference here is that this is something that it's not that Harry doesn't want to, it's that the King just, euphemistically doesn't have the time to see him.
Well, as always with these things with Harry, if you remember that brilliant phrase from the late Queen, recollections may vary. There were people in the palace yesterday who were saying to me, well, it's unclear to lots of courtiers whether the kind of request actually went in. Of course, someone like the King's got a very busy schedule of engagements, minute by minute, it's all planned out months in advance. It's not entirely sure when that request came in, and how that was made. So, there's two sides to this story.
Yeah, and still a sad story, really, because, ultimately it's about the kind of the deterioration or the difference in the relationship, which used to be a very close one. So I think we can all agree it's a pretty sad state of affairs. Now, the King obviously does have a kind of reduced diary because of his illness. How many engagements is he? What kind of capacity is he operating at right now?
Well, he is supposed to be on a reduced schedule, but it does seem pretty busy. Someone was putting it to me yesterday. So, he's still got his weekly audiences with the Prime Minister, British Prime Minister, but yesterday he was meeting with the Prime Minister of Fiji. He's still got his treatment ongoing as well. So he has that normally on a Tuesday. Today he'll be hosting a big garden party with the Queen. These are the annual kind of garden parties, traditional part of the royal calendar. And then, next Monday he'll be handing over his colonelcy of the Army Air Corps to his older son, Prince of Wales, which was another interesting kind of timing announcement yesterday, because of course the Army Air Corps was Harry's old regiment. So I don't know how Harry was feeling about all that, but the official handover for that will be on Monday.
And the thing is, just finally, Kate, we're going to have this discussion, this debate about whether who meets whom. Every time Harry comes to the UK, obviously he came when his father was diagnosed with cancer. He's come for the Invictus Games. Are there any other kind of events between now and the end of the year that will mean that he has to come and that we'll have to go through this all over again?
Well, there's nothing kind of obvious in the diary with regards to what Harry's doing, because certainly he hasn't announced it yet. But in an interview in February with an American network, he said, my work is going to be bringing me through the UK, and I want to see my family as much as possible. It's just the case that perhaps they aren't that interested in seeing him after all the kind of bows and arrows that have been slung. But it does seem a sad state of affairs. You're right. I think that most people, most families will think, why can't the king spare 10 minutes to see his younger son who lives so far away?
Yeah.
And I think that'll be the kind of take-home message. Having said that, when they've had these previous meetings, some of it's ended up in books, some of it's ended up on kind of Netflix shows. So you could see, perhaps, on his point, the trepidation there.
Yeah. Kate, thank you. Kate Mancy, assistant editor and royal editor at the Times. Interesting that she said most people would think that the king would have 10 minutes to see his son. Not Jane, though, who's got in touch and said Harry and his entire family are able to come whenever they want to the UK. He chose to limit the length of his trip and leave the grandchildren behind.
Yeah, let us know what you make of all of this. Just from a PR point of view, you think they could have just had a meeting just for the sake of not having this conversation being said about them?
Great to see you all. Thank you so much. And of course, Prince Harry, we have to start with you. You are behind all of this. It's your inspiration. 10 years on, it's got to feel like a bit of a moment, hasn't it?
Yes, I think it's much more interesting to hear it from Keith's perspective when I called him 10 years ago and he thought he just retired and was hanging up his boots and had less to do, not more to do. But no, it's 10 years is a real thing. It's our birthday at Invictus Games Foundation, and we're all very excited and thrilled. And this really is. Sometimes you can look back and go, look at what we've done, but also, given the state of the world, there is so much more to do. Sport was the magic that I witnessed, and having just come back from Afghanistan myself, seeing the wounded, injured, and sick, and seeing the effect this was having on all the families, and just the weight, the load on defense and on the individuals and on the rehabilitation programs, there just wasn't enough being done. And at the same time, not enough celebration and recognition of those sacrifices that were being made. Again, what I'd seen on the battlefield and what I was seeing now were role models. And I just really wanted to do everything that I could to be able to help create a larger platform for more individuals and to be able to really celebrate their stories. All I can say is that every single time, every single country we go to and that host the games, the impact, the positive impact on society as a whole is hugely positive.
Thank you very much. I think we're going to have to end it there. Thank you very much, my brilliant panel, the Duke of Sussex, Sir Keith Mills, Ken Fisher. Thank you very much indeed for your time.
I mean, initially, I was surprised to see the statement from Prince Harry about King Charles unable to see him. So his spokesperson said, in response to many inquiries and continued speculation on whether or not the Duke will meet with his father while in the UK this week, it is unfortunately not possible due to His Majesty's full program. So that was interesting to me because we don't hear very often from Prince Harry. For instance, right before the holiday season, Omid Scobie's book Endgame came out. Lots of speculation surrounding the idea of these royal racists, the Dutch leak, including the names of King Charles and the Princess of Wales. And so many of us were like, please just end this conversation by releasing a statement. And so for Harry and his team to release a statement saying that they just want to end speculation as to whether or not Prince Harry and the King will be meeting this trip, it just seems very hypocritical, and it seems very self-serving for Prince Harry. It almost feeds into the victim narrative that he's created in the United States with the Oprah Winfrey interview, the release of Spare, and the Harry and Meghan docuseries. Throughout Netflix, it's very much like, I'm an afterthought. I wasn't loved enough. And for the King to not make time for him, according to Harry and his spokesperson, that really does feed into that storyline. But to be honest with you, I did expect the King to see Prince Harry. I wonder if the King was advised not to see Prince Harry because Prince Harry is within hours of leaving London on a plane to Nigeria for a what's being coined a mini royal tour or a faux royal tour. And if the king were to see Prince Harry, would he be endorsing that? So I guess my head's been all over the place the last 24 hours. If you can't tell, those are really all of my thoughts when I discovered that the king would not be meeting with Prince Harry while Prince Harry was in the UK for 3 days. I was less of the opinion that Prince Harry would get together with the Princess of Wales, because it's my understanding that there has been absolutely no communication there. I do understand that the king and Prince Harry talk, that we know that Prince Harry came out to see the king immediately after his cancer diagnosis. That was, an in-person, albeit very brief meeting. We know that Harry attempted to reach out to the Princess of Wales once he learned, along with the world at the exact same time as everyone else, that she was undergoing chemotherapy for, preventative chemotherapy for some cancer fears that she had. And so there is really no proof that there's been any communication between Prince Harry, between Prince William, and the Princess of Wales. I mean, honestly, I'd say since the king's coronation for Prince Harry alone. And so I wasn't really expecting Prince Harry to meet up with the Princess of Wales. I think that they have been so fiercely protective of her throughout this process. Since we found out about the planned abdominal surgery, they've pretty much gone on lockdown, friend-wise, communications-wise, and everything we hear and see from Prince William has been carefully choreographed. It would jeopardize that shell that they've built around them to have someone like Prince Harry around, who leaves after visiting with his father after the cancer diagnosis and talks to Good Morning America about his dad's cancer diagnosis. So I think that that the Wales family will continue to be fiercely protective of themselves. It's interesting when Prince Harry picks and chooses when to elaborate, when to comment on things, because that really seemed inappropriate. It seemed like maybe he should have said, I had a wonderful visit with my father, but I don't want to say anything beyond that. I think that his family would have appreciated that kind of secrecy. And then, Harry and Meghan demand so much secrecy when Archie's 5. We haven't seen him in years. He just had a birthday. Harry and Meghan are intensely secretive. So it just feels icky when we see Prince Harry giving up some of this information about his relatives, and of course reminds us of the Pages of Spare and the Netflix docuseries, where he really did seem to violate their privacy. I try to pretend like I don't see that that's awkward timing. I try to go like, well, this was probably in the books. I'm sure that someone in the communications department said, are we sure we want to release that information right now? And there were probably multiple senior staff members that gave the okay, that realized what this would look like. It does look like a slight. And I guess if I were to defend the royal family, I would say actions have consequences. And Prince Harry I don't think Prince Harry ever had to deal with that growing up, because he always had the palace there to clean up after him. And I do think for the first time in his life, as a nearly 40-year-old man, he is seeing some of those consequences. Obviously, Megxit, that was probably the biggest reality check for him, and that was the first time that he didn't get his way and he had to figure out an alternative. But I do think he's continually surprised by his family's response to his behavior. I mean, I do wonder how close he is to Zara still, his cousin, because they absolutely loved each other. And there are some wonderful pictures of them throwing their arms around each other on polo fields. And, Princess Eugenie lived in Frogmore Cottage for a little while after Megxit. During the pandemic, her and her family camped out there so they could be closer to Prince Andrew and Fergie. I do believe he is still close to Princess Eugenie specifically. I think Princess Beatrice is fun and kind of and kind. I don't think that I think she probably protects her secrets, and doesn't overshare when she's around them. But I think that he's probably got the best relationship with Princess Eugenie. But I would be surprised if they tried to keep that from us. That feels like something we will find out about inevitably if that reunion did happen. But he's been very busy. I mean, his schedule has included meeting with, it's been Invictus back to back, and he wants to continue to be seen with movers and shakers, people that have deep pockets and that can help him not only financially with a lot of these endeavors and charitable efforts, but politically. And I think that both Harry and Meghan see the value in aligning themselves with powerful people, and that's why you see Meghan here in the States. You see her a lot with the vice president. She campaigned for voter. I guess it was promoting voting during the last election with Kamala Harris, Hillary Clinton, Stacey Abrams. So Prince Harry is out there, despite not being seen with his dad and not seeing his father. He still is out there trying to be seen with powerful people, because he wants to remind people, aside from the fact that he's still a member of the royal family, that he is still respected in these, high social circles. He even had kind of a mopey vibe at the coronation, being, sitting behind the big feather cap on Princess Anne. I feel like he's really fighting to, I think he feels rejected, and Meghan certainly feels rejected by the UK, and that's why she sits at home, on her Louis Vuitton luggage waiting for the plane to Nigeria. I think that he is fighting. Like, it's almost like a defiance or a delusion that he wants to continue to have a foot there, because that's where he grew up. That's his home. And there is really a power struggle between Harry and Meghan. I wouldn't go as far, and I've seen other commentators say that they want to create like this little American monarchy that competes with the British royal family. I don't think that that's true. I do think that they want power. I do think that they want to be around influential people, and I do think that they want to earn a lot of money. But there is a defiance in Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. They are vengeful, and they try to prove themselves. Okay, you don't want us? Well, we're going to go sign this $1 million deal with Spotify and this $1 million deal with Netflix. We don't need you. So I do feel like Prince Harry does work extra hard to prove the royal family wrong, even when he's sitting in courtrooms going after newspapers. So will he give up? I think that he'd rather run around town and kind of burn them that way, them knowing that he's in the vicinity and that he continues to live his life. I don't think he will shy away from the UK. I think that there's that like royal rebel defiance in him that will continue to show up. I was disappointed that Meghan wouldn't be there to support him for Invictus, the 10-year anniversary at St. Paul's, because I immediately visualized him there alone. This is his legacy project. This is really truly, because don't forget, they told us they were leaving the royal family to lead a life of service. And that was really their big argument when the Queen and the royal family said they couldn't use Sussex Royal. They came back with well, you don't have to be royal to live a life of service. And when they were talking to Oprah, and even a little bit in the Netflix documentary, the argument was that the royal family was holding them back from doing so much good. They had all this, good to contribute to the world, and it was the royal family that was holding them back, because Meghan wanted to show up at this event on this date, but she couldn't because Kate was going to be, Kate already had something on the calendar, and you couldn't conflict with the people higher on the totem pole. So I feel like this with Invictus, it's the only thing that they have maintained, that continues to elevate them in the world of philanthropy, and they really need to nurture that. It's also a guaranteed great press moment because everybody loves the Invictus Games. I mean, everyone I talk to, even the biggest critics of Harry, are like, I'm sorry, but I love the Invictus Games. So, I was disappointed that Meghan didn't show up. And having Harry alone or surrounded by bodyguards, making him look like he feels vulnerable, it completely plays into the American narrative again that they are victims, that they have been rejected, that they've been shunned, and the royal family is so mean. I mean, I'm disappointed in Meghan. I know in my heart that if Meghan were to show up on Harry's arm, she would receive kindness. I don't think that people that dislike Meghan Markle are going to make an effort to go stand outside of St. Paul's to boo her, to boo Harry. I'm hoping that they are employed and have other places to be, or at least have a hobby. I would certainly never boo them. So I don't know. I mean, I think that she does fear not necessarily her safety, but the humiliation that comes with rejection. They're well aware of their polling numbers that have been declining. They've hired 2 brand new publicists, one in the United States and one in the UK. And it's really crisis management. How do we turn our brands around? How do we shake off these reputations for being difficult, hard to work with, uncommitted? And so she's well aware of the way that the public perceives her. But when she does show up for Prince Harry, and I'm going to get destroyed wherever anyone listens to this, I will be destroyed for this. But when she does show up for Prince Harry, she does have that first lady quality where she does, she just looks so, so delicate and so sweet. And she sharp outfits and big smile. And I think that that is what he values in their relationship, that not only that physical support and that emotional support. And so I do think that he's disappointed when she doesn't show up for him. He would never say it to her, I doubt. But I imagine that it's a pretty defeating experience for him. And look, again, I'd stress that actions have consequences. Meghan, I know what their argument is for why they're unliked, where, all over the world. I would argue that the reality is Meghan is a difficult individual. She is a self-made person, and she felt really insecure about her place within the royal family, and so she treated people poorly, trying to prove to them, you are going to respect me, despite the fact that I'm the divorced American actress. And in the way she communicated with people, she got a mean girl reputation. I don't think it has anything to do with race. I think it has everything to do with the way she treated the people around her. You know as well as I do that the people that work for the royal family make pennies. They're in it because they're committed to the cause and because that's an amazing line on their resume that will elevate them one day. They're not in it because they are investing in their portfolio. I mean, you're eating beans. Like that's, so to have someone like Meghan coming from California with her, Chanel and, Cartier bracelet or whatever, talking down to you and being, as Valentine Lowe reported, incredibly cruel in the way that she communicated. Tom Quinn has reported on this, Tom Bauer. Valentine Lowe, as far as I know, is the only one that has been threatened with any sort of litigation. They didn't follow through with it. I think that is why people reject Meghan, because they don't feel like she's a nice person. And Harry has always had a reputation for being a good guy, and all of a sudden his behavior has changed. And people are saying, well, what's the difference here? It's the addition of another person. And I do think that he's probably pretty homesick to be with his family while he's sitting in where he grew up in the UK. From what I understand, it is a campaign to try to get the Invictus Games, give them a platform there, perhaps hold the Invictus Games there. I've heard there's potentially going to be a polo event, which will be perfect for Prince Harry PR-wise, Everybody loves seeing Harry on a horse. Meghan will get to wear the chic polo attire, do the cute little polo kisses, like we know the drill. They are going to be meeting with service people and their families that are located there. Additionally, they said they're going to be participating in some cultural activities. However, we don't know exactly what those are yet. I do think that this is an attempt, like a positive PR push for the Sussexes. Again, they're in desperate need of that. The government has offered to fly them over and to treat them like royals, and they've got to take advantage of it, because when everyone else is dumping on you and constantly reminding you of your failures, you know, did Bill Simmons have any idea that when he said what he said on his podcast about Harry and Meghan, that would be repeated probably every day for the rest of his life somewhere out there? No way. No way did he realize that. But Harry and Meghan are constantly being reminded of their failures, and they've got to generate some good PR. And knowing that there's a polo element, there certainly could be Netflix cameras following them, because we know Prince Harry has a new Netflix show coming out. And again, I'd also stress that could be why King Charles is not in the mood to meet with him, because we know we've got some new reality TV on the horizon, and they just don't want to be a part of the chaos. But I think we need to keep in mind that this is not a royal tour, but it's definitely going to look like one, because that is what they want and that is what they need. Well, this is like so funny to me, because every year around the same time, I'm going to use the word allegedly, someone from Meghan's camp leaks why Meghan was not available to attend the Met Gala. It's my understanding that Meghan has never been invited to the Met Gala. And it's also my understanding that they want to ensure that they maintain, Anna Wintour wants to continue to maintain a good relationship with the working royals. She wants access to the Princess of Wales. She wants access to Prince William, the King. And she's not going to do anything to jeopardize that. I think that if Harry and Meghan had the opportunity to go to the Met Gala, I think that would be a no-brainer, because those are the type of people that they want to associate with, that Meghan wants to be on the cover of fashion magazines. We saw it in her over-the-top Variety cover shoot. We saw it in The Cut. Like, Meghan wants to be on the cover of fashion magazines. She wants to be known as this glamorous elitist. That's important to her. That's this, you're seeing that in the build of American Riviera Orchard. So if they had the opportunity to go, I think they'd be there in a New York minute. And I just don't think that they're popular. I think that they are interesting. People read about them daily, but they're polarizing figures. You're not necessarily clicking on the article because you like them or you're invested in their success. You're clicking on them because you can't stand them and you're wondering what they did this time, or you generally love the royal family, or maybe you do like them, and that's okay. Like, if you do like them, good for you. We haven't seen them with Tyler Perry recently. We haven't seen them with Oprah Winfrey recently. We used to get little tidbits, like Tyler Perry jumped on a private jet to ensure that he was at Princess Lily's christening. We used to get little tidbits like that, and we haven't in quite some time. Although I will say, you are seeing Meghan lean into the Kardashian world, which we all accused her of at the beginning of this. We said, oh no, they're going to turn this into the Kardashians. And it does seem like she is leaning into that world. It cheapens the Sussex brand. Kim Kardashian, known for, blew up because of a sex tape with Ray J. The world shunned her. The Met Gala shunned her until she married until she started dating and married Kanye West. And that's when she got on her first cover of Vogue, through her marriage to Kanye West. Kanye West turns out to be a psychopath, allegedly. I don't even know how to word it. I don't even know how to describe Kanye West today. I just know I wouldn't say hi to him if I saw him on the street. So Kim distances herself from Kanye. Thankfully, she gets to maintain that lifestyle. But Kim was refused access to this glamorous world until she started dating Kanye. I mean, similar to Meghan. Meghan would have never been invited to the Met Gala as Meghan Markle from Suits, but she will be as Meghan Markle attached to Prince Harry, who's attached to the royal family. But I don't know. I feel like that she's leaning pretty heavily into the Kardashian world because they have a popular base that is diehard, and she needs to build a base that is diehard to continue to grow her lifestyle brand. I guess I'm not necessarily worried about everything that's going on. My mindset is, I hope we see the Princess of Wales at Trooping the Color, and that is really just kind of my focus right now. What capacity will we see the King at Trooping the Color? Because I believe we will see him there, and I hope we see the Princess of Wales there. And if we see both of them there, I am going to be excited and confident for the future of the monarchy.